Did you know your brain actually has biological glitches? It's true. And right now, invisible psychological forces are using those exact glitches to manipulate you. To make these hidden forces crystal clear in this explainer, we're going to use some simple classic Stickman animations as we go along. Because honestly, sometimes stripping away all the complex details and just drawing things out is the absolute best way to see the raw truth of how our minds actually work. Let's dive in.
So can you really trust your own senses? Think about the last time you were absolutely certain of a choice you made, only to later wonder if someone or something influenced you without you even realizing it. Our little stickman friend might look pretty confident in his choices, right? But the reality is our brains are constantly gathering data from our senses to build our version of reality. But what happens when those senses actively disagree with each other? Well, that brings us to a foundational glitch known as the McGurk effect. Basically, when our eyes and ears receive conflicting data, our brain literally panics. It creates this mental thought cloud that completely jams our conscious observation. We literally fail to notice basic details right in front of us because our internal processing is just suddenly overwhelmed by the sensory mismatch. Layer 1. Priming the subconscious mind. Let's see how this sensory conflict actually rewires your everyday behavior. Because this phenomenon isn't just about what you hear, it's about what you passively see. There was this incredible study where researchers tested online shoppers by doing nothing more than changing the background wallpaper of a website. When the background showed soft, fluffy clouds, users focused on comfort and luxury. But when the background displayed pennies and coins, those exact same users aggressively hunted for the absolute cheapest price. What's truly fascinating here is that these shoppers swore the backgrounds didn't affect them at all. It totally proves that visual priming overrides our logical choices completely undetected. And the power of priming gets even wilder. Imagine this. A researcher was struggling to get parents to fill out a school survey. His response rate was stuck way below 20%, but by simply adding a tiny detail, just invoking the concept of helping a family member right before making the request, he skyrocketed the response rate to a staggering 97%. Just shifting the psychological frame beforehand totally changed the parents' identities in that moment to helpful people. It's almost like a magic trick. So you might be wondering, is this learned behavior or are we hardwired this way? Well, researchers looked at 18-month-old toddlers. When these babies saw a background of a single person or people standing far apart before a researcher accidentally dropped some items on the floor, only 20% of them helped pick things up. But when the background showed two people standing shoulder to shoulder, the helping rate tripled to 60%. This just goes to show how primitive and easily manipulated this subconscious mechanism really is, even for toddlers who don't have any logical reasoning yet. Moving on to layer 2, words versus body language. Let's look at interpersonal sensory conflict. What happens when someone's words simply don't match their physiological tells? Our bodies betray our words constantly. Take blink rates, for instance. The average person blinks about 15 to 17 times a minute. But if you're pitching a client and their blink rate suddenly skyrockets to 80 while they calmly nod and smile, yeah, you are witnessing a massive sensory conflict between their polite words and their intense internal stress. On the flip side, pure focus drops that rate down to just 3 or 4. And watch their lips and hands. Physically squeezing the lips together, that almost always indicates withheld opinions. Covering the abdomen? That's just our ancient mammalian brain trying to protect our soft organs when we're feeling deeply vulnerable or threatened. This actually brings up a really profound philosophical point from Friedrich Nietzsche. He observed that underlying almost every logical argument is an emotional defense mechanism, shielding an inner fear. When people argue passionately with you, they aren't just citing facts. They're essentially building a fortress to protect themselves from something that hurt them in the past. And that creates what we call the control paradox. We've all met that person, right? The one who micromanages every little detail, projecting this loud authority and extreme strictness. But beneath that tough outer shell is almost always a deeply fragile inner self that is utterly terrified of chaos. They're acting out of a fear of falling apart. The absolute loudest, most controlling people you'll ever meet are usually just overcompensating for profound internal chaos. Okay, layer 3, dark psychology and mirroring. This is the dangerous territory where manipulators actively weaponize your sensory vulnerabilities against you. Let's break down the dark architecture of mirroring. Now, to be clear, I am absolutely not endorsing this behavior, but we need to expose exactly how this calculated reflection tricks your mammalian brain. Step 1, observe. A manipulator actively studies your subtle body language. Step 2, reflect. They precisely mimic your posture. Step 3, echo. They adopt your specific interests and vocabulary. Finally, step 4 is the exploit. Your subconscious registers all this similarity and falsely triggers this feeling of a soul connection. It completely lowers your natural defenses, making you feel a deep, completely unearned trust with a total stranger.
But even more dangerous is the concept of embedded commands. These bypass your logical brain entirely. Interrogators and manipulators will use really slight pauses and drops in their vocal tone to implant direct, standalone commands, things like completely relax or forget about the time, right inside casual, larger paragraphs. Your conscious mind is busy listening to the story they're telling, but your subconscious mind registers that command right past your awareness. It's wild. Next up, layer 4, the illusion of value. Let's explore how this sensory disconnect absolutely wrecks our relationship with money and keeps people trapped in an endless rat race. $300 million. That is a number that should shock you. Heavyweight champion Mike Tyson accumulated over $300 million during his career, yet he still famously filed for bankruptcy. How does that even happen? Well, it proves that wealth is a soft skill of psychology, not a hard science of math. If your underlying behavioral relationship with money is flawed, I don't care who you are, no amount of income can save you. It really comes down to this fundamental divide, the producer versus the consumer. The producer focuses on maximizing value and solving actual problems for the market. But the consumer, they endlessly chase social proof, constantly yielding to the exhausting pressure of keeping up with their peers. Ultimately, a high income cannot save you if your consumption habits are just driven by an unexamined psychological need for social validation. And when the math completely stops working, we fall right into the ostrich effect. This is a cognitive bias where we literally just avoid negative financial information. You know that awful pit in your stomach feeling of refusing to look at your bank account balance after a weekend of overspending? Yeah, that's it. Instead of confronting the sensory reality of their choices, people metaphorically bury their heads in the sand just to avoid the pain of the financial truth. Finally, layer 5, reclaiming your mental focus. So how do we actually guard our brains, escape these traps, and take back conscious control? First things first, you have to understand the amygdala hijack. That tiny almond-shaped part of your brain, that's your internal alarm system. When someone triggers you, it completely overwhelms your logical frontal lobe for about 13 critical seconds. It causes this massive mental traffic jam, locking you into a continuous, unproductive limbic loop of rumination, where you just replay the anger or anxiety over and over again. So here is how you actually break that loop, literally second by second. Right at second 1, acknowledge the emotional trigger. Don't fight it, just name it. On second 2, initiate a deep cyclic sigh breath. By second 5, begin silently counting backward from 100. And by second 13, slowly exhale. By forcing your brain to engage in this brief, mathematically driven breathing pattern, you successfully activate your parasympathetic nervous system. You effectively pull the plug on the amygdala hijack before it has the chance to ruin your day. I absolutely love this beautiful analogy. Mozart is singing, but if your radio isn't tuned, you won't hear the music. It's so true. If you don't actively practice self-mastery to fine-tune your internal frequencies, your focus, your breathing, your awareness, you'll always remain highly susceptible to the static, the noise, and the manipulation of the outside world. So I want to leave you with this final question to think about. Who is really making your choices today? Is it your conscious, disciplined mind? Or is it the sensory conflicts and subconscious whispers actively designed to manipulate you? I really hope this explainer has equipped you to spot the hidden forces around you, tune your internal radio, and finally take full control of your own narrative. Thanks for watching.